Hey guys, welcome back. Today we got another 3D printer to unbox, and it's actually quite a special one because it's a Core XY and there's not very many out there. And this is the TwoTrees Sapphire Pro. So this is the upgraded version of the Sapphire S, which was quite a nice machine, but was a little bit hard to assemble, at least in my opinion. So let's hope that this one is going to be much easier and more friendlier. And I know this thing has a lot more features to offer. So in this video, we're gonna unbox it, set it up, and do a few prints. All right, so let's get started. Alright, so the printer comes in the box like this, and it's actually quite a nice box. They had some little graphics here. There's actually a picture of the printer, and there's some straps that go all around the box. There's 4 of them, indicating that this printer does have weight to it. So on the shipping label it says that it's 30 pounds, so that's quite heavy. Alright, so let's start by cutting these off, and as simple as that. Let's go ahead and get them out of the way. So the box dimensions are in centimeters, which are 50 by 43 by 25. Quite a decent sized box. So it looks like we have really nice foam to protect everything. All right, so the first thing I see is this manual, and wow, it's actually a really nice one. It's got a shiny finish to it. It really feels premium. Very cool. So yeah, it looks like a very, very nice manual of how to assemble this thing, and then they got some really nice pictures kind of show you the motherboard there. Very cool. All right, so it looks like we're gonna have quite a few parts to take out. So we're gonna just take out all the parts one by one, and then yeah, we'll use the manual obviously to put them together. So as far as I can see, this looks more like a kit that you build, kind of, or at least somewhat. So you do have to, you know, have a little bit of knowledge of doing something like this. So it looks like we have a leveling sensor here of some sort, a filament detector sensor. Looks like some hardware from the bed. Toolkit. I like how they use the Sapphire logo there. Looks pretty cool. And we do have some nice quality snippers in there. They're definitely giving you all the good stuff here. Ah, okay, so we do have a little cute sample of PLA, and it's orange. Very nice. There's something here. Okay, so this is a BMG extruder, and it feels quite heavy because it's already connected to the motor. So it's a dual drive extruder. Very cool. I don't know if I've ever seen one like that yet. Maybe I have. That looks to be something kind of special. So it looks like here we have some frame parts. Okay, this is actually quite heavy. And also, guys, if you can see, we have linear rails on this printer, just like the older one. So linear rails give you great accuracy at high speeds. And this is what this printer is all about because of the Core XY design. So it looks like our motors are already mounted here. They basically shrink wrapped everything, or the rails, so things don't move too much. And that's actually a pretty good idea. All right, very cool. So these two motors work together in order to make the flat plane of the Core XY work. So if you don't know what Core XY is, it's quite a different type of mechanical movement than a normal XY. Definitely a cool and unique way of doing it. All right, so we got more baggies. Extruder parts. I like how they have them all labeled here. So this is our hot end, and it actually looks like quite a nice one because it does have 2 cooling fans. Very cool. We'll take a closer look in a second. We have the belt. Looks like a end stop switch. Rubber feet. A spool holder, kind of a tiny one, but that's probably all you need. Looks like the bearings to the, okay, so these are rod bearings, probably for the bed. And that's the second one there. And that looks like to be everything for the first layer. Let's go deeper. And check out this foam, guys. It's huge. So this stuff is well protected. All right, and so here we can see the bed. And it looks like it's bubble wrapped. or in a bubble pouch here. So we do have a Build-Tech style material, and it's got a little bit of roughness to it, and these are the ones I like. So it's a sticker that we're gonna have to put on there on the aluminum bed. So it is a 24 volt heated bed. So it looks like we also get some of this plastic piping that I'm not a big fan of, but it's better than nothing. So here it looks like separately, just laying there, we also have the insulation for the bed. So I guess we're gonna have to stick that on there, and that shouldn't be too hard, but I'm kind of surprised that they didn't do it from the factory. All right, no big deal. Very cool that it has it though. We do have the US power plug. So it looks like some channels here on the side. Looks like 2040 extrusion, and there's probably 4 of them. There's 2 right here. There looks to be another piece here in the middle, and this is part of the bed. So this is the metal frame where everything will mount to, or at least the bed will mount to, and then this will ride up and down. All right, so we got some more parts over here. So it looks like we have some kind of little plastic trim pieces. Our lead screw, which is quite small actually. That's interesting. And also we have 2 pretty heavy duty rods here, and these are where the bed's going to be riding up and down on. All right, and so that's the second layer. So we have a 3rd layer also, and that's where the main base is, and it looks like that the base is pretty much put together, and I love the finish on it. It's very nice. Definitely feels like an upgrade from the last version. Let's see how hard it's going to be to take this out. Not too bad. All right, so it looks like the bottom's not on. It just stayed there. And I guess that's for reasons because you still need to connect everything together. But here we can see the bottom of it. And we're going to take a really close look at all the internals after we get this box out of the way. All right, guys, and that's everything for the box. So I just realized that these were not 2040s. They're actually 2 pieces of the 2020s. So there's, because I was looking for 2 more of these because we need 4 for the 4 corners, but there's actually 4. They're just 2020s. All right, so I'm just gonna set everything up, and we'll start the building process. And actually, before we do that, I got this base flipped around. Let's go ahead and look at everything a little closer here. So here we have the power supply. It's got a fan. So the branding is Ching Lane 24 volt 360 watt power supply. All our connectors here seem to be crimped nicely, and everything seems to be pretty safe. Here we have the Y-axis stepper motor and the branding on them. Using shine. We have a little fan here, which is interesting because we do have another fan over here. So there's 2 fans. So I guess they're probably moving air. Maybe this one's pulling air in and throwing it to this one. Who knows? But there are 2 of them. So here's our power plug. It is fused, and all the connectors look nice and neat there. All right, so for the main part here is we have the board, and hopefully you guys can see that that is an ARM processor, and it looks like we're gonna have to be plugging in a lot of stuff here. We do have a micro SD card reader, which goes on the side here, and the board is called MakerBase MKS Robin Nano version 1.1. I have no idea what all that stuff means, but hopefully that's useful to somebody. So here's something good. We have removable stepper motor drivers, and looks like our X and Y are different than our Z and extruder. So maybe we have the, well, it does say here, you guys can see, maybe it says TMC 2208, and I'm guessing that is maybe the silent one. So if that's the case, then that's going to make this printer a lot nicer than the previous version. And so last but not least, we have this pretty large touchscreen here, and it also says the MakerBase brand there. So yeah, and that's basically the internals of the printer. And while we're looking at the base, let's go ahead and check out the specs here on the side. So we got the model, which is the Sapphire Pro. The print size is 235 by 235 by 235. So that's actually quite a nice size. So voltage rating is 100 to 240. The weight is 11 kilograms. Our filament diameter is 1.75 with PLA and ABS as material for printing. And we do have a quality control pass. And so over here we have the connector to connect to the printer and the micro SD card. So after reading that label, it made me realize that we should probably check the voltage on our power supply here. And I don't know if you guys can see, but mine is already switched to 115. So they probably switch them from the factory, but you still want to check just in case, especially if you live in the higher voltage countries, you know, that could potentially harm the power supply. But for me, if it was on 230, you know, there could be malfunctions and whatnot else, or not even powered on at all. So you do want to check that just in case. All right, so I got the base flip back around. Let's check out what's step number 1. So it looks like step 1 is to install the 4 profiles that go around into the base here. So we're gonna need to unwrap these 2020s. So there's 4 2020s and they're all the same. They have 2 holes here, actually go towards the side like this. And then we're gonna have a couple bolts that hold this to the main base here. So in this packet that says screw, you have your hardware. And in the manual it says M515, but we have M516, so they're just a tiny bit longer, and I think these are it because I don't see any other ones. And we should have 8 of them, and that's exactly what we have here. So we are going to need some tools. Let's go ahead and open up this toolkit and see what's in here. So I really like how they included these really nice pliers for these cutters. These are definitely useful. So there's quite a few things in here. We have the micro SD card adapter, and it's green. And we have the micro SD card itself, which is 4 gig. We have a Bowden tube, the regular white kind. It looks like an X-axis end stop switch, and a bunch of other miscellaneous little parts here for cable management, zip ties, and look like maybe some kind of heat sinks also. So, but the thing we're looking for are the Allen wrenches, and it does come with a nice little set here. So we're gonna grab our M5 16 bolts and go ahead and start them into this channel here. So I'm just gonna start the bolts, not like tighten them up all the way so it can move around just in case it needs to as we assemble it up. So yeah, so we're just gonna go around and install these 4 channels here, and then we'll go to the next step. All right, so we got the 4 extrusions on. So for the next step, we need to flip this printer around so you guys can see a little better, but we're gonna be installing what they call is the optical axes. I just call these Z-axis rods. So this is quite a simple step. We're just gonna insert one of the ends, doesn't matter which one, into these metal support things. So you're gonna put it all the way down, and then we're gonna grab our Allen wrench and we're gonna tighten this bolt here. And what that's gonna do is it's gonna clamp this rod to this bracket here. And we are gonna tighten this, you know, pretty snug. You don't have to go crazy on this thing because it just needs to clamp it. Don't try to close the gap here because you might actually snap this metal part here. So. And same thing for this other one, and that's it, we're good to go. So out of curiosity, I wanna go ahead and check these bolts. Okay, they're pretty tight, but not all the way tight, so I'm gonna go ahead and tighten them all up a little bit. And also the stepper motor bolts. And the reason you wanna do this is just in case something's loose. You know, you don't have the potential of the confusement of what's going on later on when you know everything is nice and tidy. All right, so step 2 is done, and now step 3 is the Z-axis lead screw here. And so that's gonna go inside this coupler, but we can't put it in there yet because this coupler is not adjusted right. Naturally, we're gonna have to loosen it up. So there's 2 parts to it. There's a bottom part, which clamps to the shaft, and then the top part here clamps to the lead screw. So what you wanna do is you want the shaft to go about halfway into this coupler and then clamp it down. There's no like set screws or anything, so you just need to clamp it where you need it. So if you got your shaft about halfway, that's perfect. Then this lead screw here should just go in there, and it should go down also about halfway, and then we're gonna clamp it. So that looks perfect right there. All right, so step 4 is going to be assembling the metal bed frame and everything that comes with it. So this is the metal frame, and there's already some hardware installed, like this brass bushing is already installed here, so we don't have to mess with that. We do have the bolts that are started into the frame here that are for the bushings, and the bearing bushings, whatever you wanna call these, they look like this, and they're actually greasy, so watch out. And so the way they install and the bed goes, it actually goes like this upside down. The little flanges go up here on the edges, and then our bearing will go like this through the bottom up. But before we can put that in, we need to take these little bolts off, put the bearing through, line up the holes, and then put the bolts back in. And we are gonna go ahead and tighten this nice and snuggy. I'm gonna go ahead and do the other one. All right, and so that's what that looks like. So the instruction manual tells us to go ahead and install the heated bed and all that stuff, but I don't want to do it yet because I don't want to get the bed greasy and, you know. All right, so let's go to the back of the printer here. And so with the longer parts pointing up, we're just simply just going to feed it into the rods here. And it looks like it's a perfect fit. And so our lead screw here is going to go into this bushing. Now, you also don't want to forget to probably lubricate this. It seems like it has some kind of lubrication on it a little bit, but actually it might be sufficient because it is quite sticky and got stuff on it. So, all right, in any case, so we're just going to rotate this so our lead screw can screw into this bushing here. So I'm just going to run this down a little bit so I got room to work under here. And that should be pretty good right there. So the next thing we'll be working on is the Z-axis end stop. So this is just a little bracket here with a switch on it, and we're going to install it somewhere around here. I think probably on this side because this is our hole right here that all our wiring goes to. So on this rod right here, if you're looking at the back, and it's going to go upside down just like that, and it's going to switch right here on this bearing here. So there is a little set screw right here So you can orientate this obviously like you need it. I'm not sure what the best way to do it. I'm probably just going to orientate it like this for now, and then later we can change it. This is going to be our home switch for the Z-axis. So that was part 5. So going back, I was reading this again, and it looks like they were saying install the metal frame and then put the bed on it. So I guess I should go ahead and do that. It makes too much sense. So here we are looking at the side, that's the back. So here we have the heated bed with the Build-Tech. The reason I didn't like this step after installing those bearings step is because your hands get greasy, and then you start touching the aluminum plate here, and then that gets greasy, and then you try to put the sticker on top of it. So it's not a good combination of sequences here. But yeah, so just make sure you wash your hands after touching the greasy stuff. All right, so we got all our wires, looks like taped up back here. We need to release them. All right. So we're definitely going to have to be a little careful here, and you know, we're going to have to somehow figure out how to manage these wires later. So the thing I need to do next is I need to go ahead and install this insulation, and that shouldn't be too hard. Let's see, just peel this sticker off here. So now we got a really sticky side, and all we're going to do is we're going to line it up here with the bed. And what you want to do is you don't want to cover the little holes that are everywhere around the bed. I'll show you guys in a second. Basically, you just want to center it. So something like this. You can see you got the little holes around. That's for the bed mounting. So as long as you don't cover those, the insulation. So yeah, if you're happy with it, go ahead and press it in there really good so it can get stuck on forever. And that's it. So we're good to go with that. So in the same baggie of where it says screw, we have the hardware for the bed. And this is a very simple procedure. We're just gonna grab our long bolts and we're gonna put it through the bed on each corner. So there's 4 holes in the frame, and these 4 long bolts are gonna go through those holes. Now before you put them through there, what you need to do, take a spring and put it through the bolt first. Hopefully you guys can see, and then you can go into the hole. So this could get a little tedious, but you can do it just one side at a time. So I got the 2 in the back end, and now we can just lift the front and easily put these in. And so just like that, we have the bed sitting on springs now. And so for the last part, we have 4 really nice little metal knobs here. They are little, but they are very nice quality. And then we're just gonna tighten them up on the 4 corners. And so what I like to do is I like to compress the spring about halfway. So later when we're setting this up, we're gonna have the bed ready to be adjusted up or down because the spring is already compressed halfway. All right, so I'm really happy with that. Let's go to the next step. So step number 6 is installing this top frame assembly here. I'm just gonna leave all the shrink wrapping on for now. So the motors here, the 2 stepper motors, they're gonna go to the front of the printer. So here we have the front of the printer pointing this way. And so this mount's quite easy. We have 4 holes here, and then on the 4 extrusions, there's a tap there the bolts will go into. So it's quite simple. Now as we're putting it on, we're gonna put our rods into these brackets here. A little bit of lining up to do, but not a big deal. So I would start with the rods first and go inside of them, and then the rest just kind of sits where it has to sit. And so then we're going to take 4, I guess, M5 10s. I think the manual says 8s. So we're just going to install them without tightening them too hard yet. Let's go ahead and put the rest of them in. All right, so the 4 of them started, and everything seems to be sitting really good. So I'm going to go ahead and tighten all the 8 bolts on the bottom here, and then I'm going to go up and tighten the ones on the top. All right, so I got the frame and all the bolts tightened up really good, and it's solid as a rock. I mean, this thing is like a tank. And because this printer is all metal, it really feels like a really high quality machine. So there's one more thing that we need to do before we continue, and we need to go ahead and tighten these 2 clamps here so you can grab onto this rod. All right, so these are tight, and we should be done here. So for the next part, what we need to do is we need to take off all this shrink wrapping because we're going to be working on the hot end assembly. So this is also a greasy project here because we got linear rails underneath here for the y-axis and obviously the x-axis. So there's going to be a little bit of grease involved here. So now our y is running free. Loosen the x-axis, and these linear rails feel super solid. All right, so our next part is the hot end assembly, and it is quite a interesting contraption here. We do have some wiring to deal with, and I'm guessing it's probably going to go up the wiring. But yeah, this is what our hot end looks like. So it's going to mount right here on these 3 or maybe 2 bolts here. So we have dual part cooling fans, the nice radial ones. So that should give us really nice cooling. 0.4 nozzle, and we do have a little cooling fan for the heat break. So yeah, it looks pretty nice. All right, so what you're looking at here is the back of the printer, and this is the front of it. You can see the, well, maybe you can see the motor right there, and there's another one over here. On the back side here, we can see that we have the X-axis end stop switch already installed here. And we have 1, 2, 3 bolts that we need to get out from this bracket so we can install the hot end assembly. Supposedly installs just like this. So let's go ahead and get those bolts out first. So this plate here goes in between this plate and this coupler here, where the ptfe tubing goes. So then we kind of slide it in just like that. And now we can start our little bolts. So we can go ahead and tighten these up really good. All right, so we got our hot end assembly on. All right, so our next step is putting on the belts, and it probably will seem a little bit intimidating, especially if you've never done a Core XY printer. The belts could be a little bit intimidating, but TwoTrees provides this super cool picture here that kind of shows you where each belt goes. So if this was the front of the printer, you can see the 2 motors. You can see where belt starts. This is the Y-axis belt, and then the X-axis belt starts on the other end of the hot end assembly here. So it's actually a lot simpler than it seems, and this graph right here shows exactly where it goes. All right, so let's pull our belts out, and there's 2 of them, and they seem to be really nice quality because they're brown on the inside and black on the outside. Seems like a more higher end belt here. So it is one long belt, so we're gonna have to cut it, but we won't cut it until we do one end, and then we'll cut it when we're done with that. All right, so let's do the Y-axis first. And so according to the diagram, we're gonna have to flip the printer to the front, because on the diagram we have the motors on the front here. All right, so what we're gonna do is grab the belt with the smooth side out, loop it through this hole, and then make kind of like a little loop and put a zip tie on it. So we're just facing the teeth together. That's what's gonna hold it from coming apart. And then we're gonna zip tie it really good, nice and tight. And then after you do zip tie it, make sure you tug on this belt a little bit, because it will loosen up. So you definitely want to do this, or your belt might get loose over time. All right, so then we're simply just gonna go around this first idler pulley here, and then we're gonna go inside this motor housing here. All right, so I grabbed the portable camera. So here what you guys can see, we looped the belt and zip tied it here, and then it's gonna go around this pulley. And then after this pulley here, it's gonna have to go inside there, around that gear right there. And then from there, it's gonna head towards this pulley here. So let me go ahead and get that belt around there. So we're starting on this side, and then going around the motor, and then just back to the hot end on the other end. And this one's just gonna be the other way around. We're gonna start here, go around the motor, and then end up on the other side. All right, so we got it around the gear. So now we're just gonna go around this gear here, the lower one. So yeah, it's quite simple. Just keep going around. Then there's our other pulley, and then we're gonna go around this little pulley, and then back to the hot end, but this time on this side, but we started from this side over here. So it's corner to corner of the hot end. All right, so once we get it through there, now we just need to cut the belt. So I'm gonna cut it a little bit longer just in case. Make sure that you're running through all your pulleys and everything is straight before you cut that belt. And then same thing as the other side, we're gonna tighten it up and zip tie it. All right, so I got it nice and tight. And now I can go ahead and cut my belt with confidence. So one thing I noticed is that I'm definitely gonna have to adjust that gear pulley a little bit lower, because it's a little high right now, and when this thing's running around, it's kind of pinching in there in a funny way. So, but we're gonna adjust all that, make sure they're running smooth and true after I install the other side. So basically the other side is the same way. We're gonna start here, go around the motor, and then just in a big circle back to this end here. Very simple, even though it does seem intimidating at first. All right, so the belt is on, or the belts, both of them, and it turned out really good. So I just tightened them according to, just pulling on it and getting them tight. I'm not sure exactly where the tensioner is for these belts exactly. So, maybe you just have to tighten them as you're, crimping them down with this zip tie. So that's what I did, and it turned out perfect. And they're the same tightness on both sides. So in any case, the next thing we need to do is make sure our gears there are running true to the belt. Kind of hard to see, but that one is binding a little bit, because if you look at the belt, it kind of goes sideways as it goes in there. It gets really close to there, so that needs to be adjusted. So this one actually needs to go down, and that sprocket actually needs to go up a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and adjust that, and then we'll go to our next step. So step 9 is installing the extruder. This piece right here, the dual drive extruder. So it's already connected to the stepper motor. You guys kind of see the gearing in there. So it looks like this is where our filament will go in. And then here, it'll go out to the hot end, interconnecting with the Bowden tube. So here's a little flap that opens up and we can kind of see this little gearing here. So this design actually has 2 pushers on each end that push the filament in. So this should be a lot more reliable, I guess, compared to a normal one. All right, well, that's pretty cool. So there is a little baggie that comes with it. And it looks like it has some of the parts that we need. It does have a little piece of ptfe tubing. And I'm guessing that probably goes right in here somewhere. So our filament will go in here. And that's actually really smart because a lot of the times the filament will wear out whatever hole it is here if it's not metal. So I think that's how that goes, but we'll see. So we do have 2 bolts and some T-nuts, and I'm guessing that's to mount it. But then we have a longer bolt, a spring, and a little washer. And I think what that's for is to push this little arm in. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the spring inside this long bolt, and then we're going to put the washer on the other end, kind of like that. And so then we're going to just screw it into this arm piece here. And so what's happening here is we're giving tension to the arm with the spring. So if I push it out, this is how I can release it, you know, and the more tension I give it, the harder it's going to push against the filament. So I'm not sure exactly how hard that needs to be, but we can adjust it later on. So I think that's how that goes. And as far as this whole assembly, I think it just goes on. So just to the left side, right over here is where it mounts, somewhere around here. So there's 2 holes on each end, but they only obviously want you to use one since, you know, you can only have one. So we're going to use the one that's, you know, towards the center more. So we're offsetting the weight kind of towards the middle. And we are working with T-nuts here, so all right, so I'm just gonna move this a little bit closer here, and it's simply just gonna go right into this channel somewhere around here. So I don't know if it needs to be higher or lower, probably higher, maybe all the way up, probably a good idea. The reason why is because we still have a spool holder that goes here somewhere with a spool. But yeah, that should be good right there. So we can go ahead and install the spool holder, which is also a very simple process and a very simplistic design here. So it's just one piece of metal. So we're using bolts with T-nuts. So I'm gonna grab a spool to help me gauge where it needs to be. Okay, so there's plenty of room between this and the extruder. So actually the extruder could go down if need be. But I don't think it does because, you know, our Bowden tube probably needs to reach. But all this is very easily adjustable, just 2 bolts. So let's just put this somewhere around here, tighten it up, and that's good right there. So we have our spool holder and the extruder installed. All right, and our last step is actually the bottom, the base with the feet. So let's go ahead and flip this printer on its side. Well, actually, that's kind of funny because we can't really do this until we connect everything. So yeah, so basically that's pretty much where the instructions end, and there's some installation notes, kind of tells you, you know, putting in the Teflon tube, putting on the little heat sinks, things like that. And then we got the motherboard here where everything connects. So yeah, that's it. So this is kind of like you're on your own now. All right, so we're definitely gonna skip the bottom. That should probably be the last part we do. So we do have some wiring over here that we need to cut loose that needs to go actually up to the printer. That looks like our motors to the X, Y, and E because our Z is already connected down here. So these are all motor wires. So here's something kind of funny. Our main board is right here on this side, but the hole to feed the wires through is all the way over here on the other side. So this is a little weird why they did that. Why is the power on this side, not on that side, and the hole not on this side but the other side? So anyways, hopefully all these wires are long enough to reach everything, and they looks like they are, but we definitely gonna have to do some organizing here once we get all our wires in, or maybe we can start organizing right now. Let's say these motor wires can be one pack, and we'll zip tie some more stuff as we go. All right, so I think the next thing we really need to do is kind of cut all these wires loose here and start building our little loom that comes out of here, including this ptfe tubing, which we can probably go ahead and install. So it's kind of hard to see, but couplers right there. I'm just gonna push it in there. Okay, so it went really deep. Hopefully that's good enough right there. All right, so I got all the wires loosened and you know, kind of just hanging down here. So I still need to add my sensor wire here to the pack. But essentially what we're doing here is we're combining all the wires into one loom here. And then we can either use this option here, what they provided, or you might be able just to use electrical tape and wind it all up. So it depends, I guess, what look you want to go for. Honestly, these things are kind of a pain to put all the wires in, but I mean, the worst part about this would be to, you know, finding the right plug to plug them in. So this is just kind of organizing them all. Now, again, I wish this part was already done at the factory because all these wires are together anyways. So why not go ahead and, you know, do it quickly, professionally, and then just wind them up in a loop, whatever. But in any case, not a big deal. So here's an update on the wiring. So what I did was I used electrical tape to, you know, compress them all together. And that made it way easier to try to put it in this tubing here because it's barely seems like fitting in there, or it's just really tight. In any case, it is going in and I'm feeding it in, and I got a pretty good amount to go here. So yeah, I'm just gonna keep working this thing and then do our other wiring here on the end stops and the bed also. All right, and I'm finally done with it, and let me tell you guys, that is a painful process for my fingers. So this is definitely a lot harder than it should be probably, but in any case, it looks really nice and it's long enough to go all the way down into that hole. So I think the next thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and maybe plug in these motors here and kind of see where the wire's going so I can bundle them all up together. So we need to get all the wires kind of going where they're all supposed to be going, and then kind of work at them as, you know, as we see fit. So I got the printer laying down and working on the wires here. I got some of the main wires here through the hole. Just like my suspicion earlier, I was right. So we have the X motor cable, and the X motor is way over here. So it has to go through the board this way to the hole and then all the way around that way. And it's not long enough. I mean, it's not reaching, like barely. So I think they obviously thought of this. And if we look over here, there's a hole, a channel here between the channel and this frame here that could fit that plug through there and go up this channel here to the motor. Same thing for the other side down here. So they're pretty close to the board, and then they'll just go out into the motors. All right, guys, so I got some progress made. I think all of the wires are all down here where they need to be. And I went ahead and put the wires through here to the X and Y motors. So the X motor is on the left side if you're looking at the front of the printer, and the Y is on the right. So I also got the bed wiring here loomed in the piping here. So that looks pretty nice. So the next monumental part of this build is going to be connecting all this to the board here. It shouldn't be too hard because we do have this really nice diagram here that tells us where everything goes. And if you're confused about what wire goes where, you can always track it back to the part. They're the same color throughout till, you know, they come out the other end. So, but yeah, just take your time and, you know, make sure you plug everything in the right place, and hopefully it'll all work at the end. All right, so I'm going to try to do my best to go over every wire here. So on the manual here, they actually have 1 through 10, which connects technically all the wires here. So number 1, it says connect the hot bed interface. So I guess let's just go in order. So our hot bed interface, which is our power wire, are these really big, thick ones. So we got a positive and a negative. This is where that little screwdriver that's included is going to come handy. Now here's something crazy. On the diagram, it shows that our heated bed goes right here, which is positive and negative. And then we got negative and positive here for the power to the board. Whoever assembled this power put it on the wrong lead there, or on the wrong port. So we're gonna have to unhook that, and we're gonna go one down. So the positive goes on the bottom one and the negative goes on the top one. So positive is red, negative is black. All right, so we got the bed connected. So number 2 is the hotbed thermal. And so the hotbed thermal is way over here. So that's our little wire here, the little black one that goes with the bed. So we're just gonna plug that in right there. So number 3 is X and Y end stop switch wires. So the limit switches for the X and Y, which we have right here. One on the top is the X. So we're gonna grab the X and plug it in. And it is all labeled on the board. So the next one is Y and then the Z. And these are the 3 end stop switches. And if I'm understanding correctly, it says to use the Z end stop interface with the auto sensor, because there is one more right here. And I'm guessing that's what that's for, because there's no other place for the auto leveling sensor that we installed. And that's this wire here. So we're just gonna go ahead and plug it into here, and hopefully that is where it goes. So part 5 is connecting the motor wires, the X, Y, and E, which we have done already. And our Z motor was already connected. Part 6 says connect the heat sink's cooling fan wire to the 12 volt, 24 volt constant output. So are they talking about these heat sinks maybe? 2 little black ones and 2 larger ones. So I'm not sure where the larger one should go and where the smaller one should go. So I'm just gonna put the small ones on the red and the larger ones on the white here. And hopefully that's right. So you just peel the little sticker behind it, and then we're just gonna put it right over the chip. And that should stick there, hopefully forever. All right, and I'm hoping that is the way those go. A lot of uncertainty here. Connect the print model cooling fan wire to the fan interface. Okay, well that one makes sense. So the part cooling fan wire is this one that has 2 wires coming out to each fan with 1 plug. Plug is right here, this white one, right underneath this heatsink. So hopefully that's where this goes. Okay, so I just figured out what the step 6 was talking about. It was talking about this plug right here, which is the constant 12 volt output. And that's the other fan, that's the heat break fan, the one that cools off the heatsink. So that one's constantly on, and it goes right here on the top. So, and that's the little wire here by itself. So red and black, that goes to the fan. Okay, so the next part is the heating rod, which is the heat block, to the extrusion head 1 interface. And so that would be right here. And this is what these wires look like. And there is no positive or negative, so that doesn't really matter where they go. You know, they are negative and positive, but because it's just a shorting out of heating, it really doesn't matter which way you flip these around, it would be fine. All right, so they'll go just like that, and then we'll tighten them up. All right, so that's the hot end heating block here. So for step 9, we need to connect the thermostat to the extrusion head 1 thermal. And that is way over here, this black little plug right here next to this pinky purple one. So this is the wire that comes all the way from the hot end, and this is the thermostat for it. All right, so that's on, and this thing's definitely making a little bit of a stretch, but I think we have some extra wire we can play with here. All right guys, so we're getting really close to finish. So as you can see, that wasn't very hard. And our last step is to connect the filament detector. And that actually goes right over here, right below the end stop switches. And then we skip one and then the one after that. So we haven't even taken out the filament detector. That's what that looks like. And that's the wire to it. So yeah, as you can see, we skip one and then it's the next one down. And that should be good right there. And believe it or not, guys, that is the last wire that we need to connect. So everything is connected. So I guess that wasn't as hard as it seemed. So now all we got to do is clean up the wiring under here. And then we can go ahead and put the bottom on with the feet. So I think we're finally getting somewhere with this printer. We got everything in here pretty tidy. Yeah, it could look nicer, but it's fine. Nobody's going to see it. So let's go ahead and install the bottom plate here. And I'm guessing it's going to go like this with the fan matching up to that power supply. So there is a baggie of hardware called rubber feet, and basically we just have some bolts and rubber feet. So we're going to put the bolt through the foot, and then that's just going to screw into the frame. All right, well this is kind of awkward. The bolts that come with it are too short to reach the threads right here. And actually guys, we forgot to do a step, and I don't know if I saw this in the manual or not, but there are 1, 2, 3, 4 bolts here that goes into this channel that goes up, the 4 of them. There was 2 on the side, but there's actually 1 more on the bottom. And so that's what these 4 extra black bolts that I didn't know where it went go. They go in here. So we can go ahead and put these on also. Yeah, but the foot issue is kind of interesting. I'm gonna try to compress it first and then back it out, see if that helps. Seems like maybe it did a little. Let's see. All right, so after pushing, quite hard on it, I was able to make it start, but it's barely grabbing. So I don't know if that is the right way to do it or not, but it seems like they miscalculated this part a little bit. But that's okay, we're gonna make it work. So once they start, they go good. They compress the foot enough to grab on really good. But be careful not to go too much because you will rip through the rubber and then, go all the way through it. Just watch out for that. So with some moderate persuasion, they eventually went on. It wasn't easy, I had to push pretty hard on them. But in any case, they're on. And there's actually 2 more bolts here that kind of hold the middle so it doesn't sag. So very nice looking bottom. All right, so let's go ahead and put the 1, 2, 3, 4 bolts that we never did before. All right, so everything on the bottom is tightened and on and good to go. So now we can flip the printer back around on its feet. And it actually can stand like it's supposed to now. All right, well, we're getting really close to getting this thing done. So we still need to cut our Bowden tube and stick it into the extruder. We're gonna put our head in this corner over here, farthest away from the extruder here. And I think that's plenty right there. Yep, that should be pretty good. I'm just gonna cut it like that. So when you do cut the ptfe tubing, be careful not to, you know, smash the hole. If you do, you know, try to straighten it out. So they are kind of fragile. So you want that as round as possible so the filament can go through easy. So yeah, now all we're gonna do is just stick it in there, just like that. And that's it, it should be locked in. That looks just right, perfect. Awesome. All right guys, so I got the printer pretty much cleaned up and all the wires are looking really nice. So you guys can see how everything tucked away and just looks clean. So definitely happy with the result and definitely turned out much nicer than I thought it would. So we got plenty of slack here for the bed, and then we got plenty of slack here for the hot end. So there's only a few more things left to do, and one of them is installing the Built-Tech surface here on the bed, and that's not too hard. We're just gonna peel it and then work from one corner to the other. And then we also have these little trim pieces, and I think that's just for the fascia here, but I don't know why you would need them. Honestly, I like the way it looks, the way it is. So I'm not gonna use these things. I guess if you want to, you can put them on there. Not sure exactly what they would be good for. And another thing is our filament detector here doesn't really go anywhere, so I guess we're gonna have to figure out how to use that. And most likely is, you know, when you're threading your filament through, you can just put this in between. I guess that's how that would work, because there's no special bracket to connect it anywhere. So here we have a really nice large screen and there's a protector over it. Let's go ahead and peel that off. I love how large this display is. It's a really nice looking printer. It looks quite modern and futuristic looking. So I'm quite excited to power this thing on, and crossing my fingers everything is connected right and everything will work like it's supposed to. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and stick this on and then we'll plug in the power and power it on. All right, so I put the Built-Tech sticker on and it actually turned out quite well. So I think we're okay and ready to power this thing on. So I plugged in the cord to the wall. So let's see what happens. Fingers crossed. Okay, fan is on, heard a beep, screen is on. Look at that. All right, well that's great. And the UI, guys, is super nice. I love that look with the black background and really nice colors on the icons there. So before we do anything, what we need to do is we need to get this bed close to the hot end. And that's gonna require us adjusting this end stop switch up and down, so most likely up. So what we need to do is we need to run this bed manually all the way up. Now make sure that you got all your bed springs compressed about halfway. Okay, so I can tell already that I'm gonna have to move that switch over there because it's almost at it and I'm not even close to the nozzle yet. So I'm gonna move that all the way up here somewhere. And basically what we're trying to do is we're gonna get the bed really close to the nozzle and then we're gonna bring the switch down to it and lock it in there. And that's gonna adjust our Z-axis to stop exactly where we need it, and then we'll fine tune it with these knobs as we level the whole platform. All right, so I think I got it pretty close. So I'm just gonna manually move it up. So as I go up, I don't know if you can hear it, the end stop switch clicks. And when it clicks, we literally have just a little sliver of room left between the bed and the nozzle. So that should be close enough. So the next thing we need to do is we need to home the machine, make sure all the stepper motors are working and all the end stop switches are working. And then after that, we need to preheat it, make sure our bed goes up in temperature and our hot end also. And then after that, we'll level the bed. All right, so let's click on tools here. And this is the options we have. We have preheat, extrusion, move, home, leveling, filament changing, I guess, and some more stuff. Let's see what's more. Well, more is empty. So that's it. So let's go ahead and click that home button and hope, you know, everything works out like it's supposed to. I'm gonna get ready to shut it off just in case I did something wrong. So here we go, 3, 2, and 1. Okay, so once I clicked home, I gotta do all here. All right, so far so good. Okay, good. And now the home. Okay, so all the axes went up and down. So the squeaky sound you heard was actually from the lead screw over that brass bushing. I guess maybe it needs a little bit more lubrication, so I might go ahead and add that. All right, so that's good news. So let's go ahead and go back and click on preheat. So I wonder if there's a quick button here, maybe. Let's just click this, see what happens. No. So you can switch it between the hot end and the bed, but there's no. Okay, so this is the increments here. Oh, the touchscreen is very responsive. Close. So I guess that means stop. So I guess you have to manually do it. So that's the bed. So let's put the bed at 50 and the hot end let's put at 210. Okay, so the hot end is starting to heat up and the bed looks like also. All right, good. So I can definitely feel already that the bed is hot, and that insulation is really helping that out. So I'm really happy that they added that feature. We can go ahead and get ready for leveling. So let's click this leveling button here. So here we have point 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5. So we have the 4 corners and then the center. So let's go ahead and go to corner number 1. Yeah, we definitely need to put some lube on that Z-axis rod. So let's go into corner number 1, which is not way out here. It's more towards the center, which is actually better. So we're just gonna grab a piece of paper. We're gonna put it under there and then we're gonna adjust it. There's some tension there. Let's go to point 2. All right, so what we need to do is we need to go over the points 1 through 4 at least 3 times. And then we can do 0.5, which is the center, and check it. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. And then we'll check the middle and their bed will be leveled. All right, so I went around a bunch of times to make sure it's straight. Now let's go ahead and do the center. And the center is actually a little tight. So what I like to do in this situation is just tighten each one just a little bit. And that should give us, okay, yeah. It should be just right there, maybe just a little tiny bit more. And so now our whole platform is nice and level. So let's go ahead and use this orange filament, this PLA that came with the machine. So we're gonna set it in our spool holder and then we're gonna feed it straight into the extruder. And so now I'm gonna have to pull on this knob like this and then feed it in there more to get it into the gearing. Now if I want to, I can probably push it all the way down through there, but let's check out what kind of options they have for the filament. I am bypassing the filament detector for now. I'm not even sure if it's connected and working. So all right, so let's click on filament, load, unload. Well, before I do anything, I need to lower this bed so you know there's some clearance between that nozzle. So let's go to move and Z-axis down. So this is kind of weird, but it won't let me go down. If I click up, it goes down a bit and then back up to the, well actually no, there it goes. Okay, so I guess up is actually down. I kind of wanted to run it down even more because to lubricate, I did put some lube on that Z-axis rod there, so yeah, it looks like it's getting quieter now. So the more it runs, it seems like the more it's getting a lube on it or it needs it. All right, so let's go back and do some loading. So I'm gonna click load. It says complete the heating, okay. All right, so it's ready to go. So it's loading, please wait. So it is pulling in the filament. Oh, for some reason it says load complete. So it doesn't run it that long. So I guess they do want you to push it through all the way and then use this option to purge it because it runs for a bit and stops. So I did push it all the way down into the hot end, and as you can see, we have some filament coming out. Okay, so it looks like maybe this screw here is not tight enough. I need to tighten this up. I heard some skipping. All right, that feels pretty good actually right there. All right, so we are purged and I guess we're ready to print. This is quite exciting. So here we have the adapter and also our little micro SD card. And this thing will print in right here on the right side of the printer. Let's go back and let's go to, well, I guess let's look at the settings right quick. So if we click settings, okay, so we actually have Wi-Fi, cloud options, interesting. Fan, okay, about, that's the firmware that's running on it. Continue, okay, so I guess if you have power loss, you can continue a print. This is to turn off the stepper motor so you can move it around by hand. And then we have languages, and look at that, quite a few of them, guys. So if you're from one of these languages, you will definitely enjoy this printer. All right, so we have the tools, the settings, and this is where we're going to find our files. So let's see if there's anything to print here. Okay, apparently not, unless, so I went to the computer and put the SD card in there and it did have a file, but it was a zip file. So I had to unzip it and then there was a test print. Let's go ahead and print that. I think it was supposed to be some kind of lighthouse, and that's what that is right there. So these are folders and these are G codes there. I got the cube, got the benchy, and then this is the lighthouse that was included with the printer. So let's go ahead and print that. It's quite a large print, I think, but it'll be perfect for that roll, and we'll get to see how this first print comes out. So confirm. That's a really nice setup here. So we get the TwoTrees logo there, and this is all the info. We can pause it, stop it. We have options: temperature, fan, filament, and speed. So here we have how much time elapsed. This is where the Z axis is at the moment, and then temperature of the hot end, and then the temperature of the bed, and that's the fan speed. Very nice. All right, so this thing's warming up and it should start printing here shortly. Pretty excited to see how it goes. Okay, so it's doing something. All right, so it's just going straight for the lighthouse. So I think it's making a skirt. Well, maybe not a skirt, but a brim probably. That's probably what it is. So yeah, it looks like we've started and everything looks pretty good. The flow seems to be good. It's flowing. And the printer is not too loud either. I wouldn't say it's ultra quiet or anything, but it's definitely on the quieter side. Probably has something to do with those stepper drivers. And I'm gonna just let it print, and then I'll come back and we'll take a look at it as it's printing. So it's only been 1 hour and 27 minutes, and as you guys can see, it's only 14% done. So this thing's got a long way to go for sure. So it's quite a large print. I'm hoping there's enough filament in that spool, because if you guys see that, look at that infill. That's just ridiculous. I don't know why you need such a heavy infill. I mean, that's, you know, kind of wasting a lot of product, seems like. But in any case, we're just gonna let it print, and there seems to be no issues with the belts. Everything is operating perfectly, and it's really interesting to watch a Core XY system work because of the way the belts are moving. Like one you would think would be moving while it's not moving, and then the other. So the way it calculates on the movement is really weird and pretty unique. All right, so I'm just gonna let this thing print, and yeah, hopefully something good will come out of it. All right, so our print is done, and it took 6 hours and 52 minutes. So yeah, quite a long print. And this is what it printed. It is a lighthouse, and it's quite a solid print. There was a lot of filament that went in it. You guys can see that spool's almost empty. All right, well, it looks pretty good here, just initial look, but this is a design where it has a bunch of like these little bumps and stuff in it, so probably not the best model to judge on how good the quality is. I'm just gonna use a knife, see if I can get under there. Okay, or at least the first part of it started easy, the brim. So once I grabbed this huge knife here, I was easily able to cut that thing off, and it just came right up. So let's take a closer look at this lighthouse. So I don't really know what to say, except for, you know, it's really hard to judge this kind of print, plus this color and all this bumpiness on it. That's about all we can say here. We don't know what it's supposed to look like or what. So in any case, so it did print that out, and I guess the good part here is we know the printer's operating and everything's fine. So I'm gonna go ahead and print a bunch of other models, and then we'll take a closer look at the details. Alright guys, so I printed quite a few things, as you can see here, and before we look at all the models, I want to get this out of the way because I do have an issue, and I'm pretty sure it's with that lead screw there, because I'm still having the binding and the screeching sound even after lubricating it, flipping the lead screw around the other way, loosening the bushing so it's really loose, and also applying lots of lubricant on there of different kinds. So nothing helped, and it's still screeching as it goes down. It did get quieter, but it still has the issue, and I'm definitely seeing it in the prints. As we look at these prints, I want you to keep in mind that I do have that issue there, and I need to figure that out. So we already saw the lighthouse, and that was kind of hard to see and judge because of the way it is and what kind of print it is. So after that, I went ahead and printed this benchy. And it actually turned out well, but if you can see this white line around the middle, that's actually me messing around with the settings. So because if you look at the bottom here, it looks really good, but there is a little bit of like these little lines in it. So what I did was I tried adjusting the temperature as it was printing. So this is 200. And then what you see here, the lighter color that's fuzzy, that's actually 180. And then above that is 220. So it's kind of like a drastic change. And as you can see on the 220, it had the best results with the cleanest look. And you can tell even on the upper portion here that it's quite a nice print overall. So I feel like this is a pretty good print. and there's no like major issues here. So after the little benchy, I wanted to print a little 3D mini overhang test. This is just a simple kind of little print that, you know, curves the angle as it keeps going more steeper and steeper, and then we have our percentages here. But in this print, you guys can see maybe how there's some layering in the print. I mean, the overall print is pretty nice, and here we have a bunch of other little parameters that it does, but it's not perfect, as you can see, and there's definitely something going on. But we can see here on our overhangs, hopefully you guys can see, that looks like we can tolerate about 50 pretty well, and about a 45 on this much steeper kind of angle here. So I mean, that's about the typical. So I actually printed this calibration cube with this model together. The calibration cube also has those lines in it, as you can see, and they're quite evident, and they're, you know, just throughout the z-axis of the print. So I truly believe there's something going on with that lead screw there. So I wanted to print another calibration cube, but this time I printed it in much higher temperature. And if you guys can see, it seems to kind of hide the lines a lot better. And I think I printed this at 220 temperature, which gave it a much better result. So the lines are almost not there, but they're still there kind of. So you're gonna see this trend going throughout all the prints that I got here. So after I figured out that 220 printed a lot better, I printed this benchy here in blue at 220 degrees, and it definitely turned out much better. And you guys can see it's still a pretty good print, but if you really look, there's, you know, still, especially in the beginning, there's more layering. Then as it goes up, it kind of disappears. So maybe my lead screw here is just deformed or something. So after the benchy, I wanted to print something unique, which I printed this little Xbox remote stand, and this thing turned out really good. So these little gold pieces you see right here, they're actually printed separately, which actually took only a few minutes to print. And then they just pop into the base here, and they actually come out. Well, one piece came out there, you can see. So this is definitely a fun little print here, and it gives you, you know, some functionality to 3D printing. So the remote just literally lays on like this. I'm definitely going to keep this one and put it near the Xbox so it can hold that remote. If you can see, you know, there's again layering throughout the print. So after the Xbox stand, I wanted to print something a little bit more complicated and larger, and this is called a simple boat, I think. This thing usually prints out very nice on the bottom part of here, because all these areas are smooth and just got clean lines, and it turned out really good here. But just at the right angles, you'll be able to see, you know, those layer lines still there. And you know, they keep going up as the print goes, and you know, as we get to our finer details here, it starts to fall apart a little bit, and the reason why is because I printed this at 220, and 220 is a little too hot for these fine little details. But if I print it at lower temperatures, then I get even more layering that looks even, I guess, worse. But basically with this print, I was trying to level out detail versus quality. And so for the last part, I printed a little vase in spiralized mode, which is one layer. This thing, guys, really shows you the layer issues that it's having. I don't know if the camera is going to be able to pick it up, but I mean, it looks pretty good overall. But if you look closer, you will see this baby is nice and layered. So there's something going on, and I'm not sure exactly what it is, but I have a suspicion it is the lead screw. And you can see our bottoms are beautiful. So this is a pretty unique little vase. But yeah, overall the finish is not bad. It's just not where it needs to be. So yeah, guys, that's all the prints that I printed. As I was printing these prints, I, you know, kept checking everything, making sure that I didn't have anything loose, or, you know, maybe somewhere in these linear rails or these belts, but everything seemed to check out and everything seemed to be nice and tidy. So I can't really fault anything but that lead screw there. In any case, this is probably my isolated situations, so take that into consideration when thinking about this printer, because this printer overall is awesome. I mean, the build construction of the thing is all metal. It's just a high-end looking machine with high-end parts all over it. I mean, you can really tell that this thing is here for the long run. So, and not to mention how great it looks. I mean, it just looks amazing. So now they have the 235 by 235 by 235 cubed printing surface is much more versatile, much more exciting. And the touchscreen and the UI is one of the best. So the other two things that I was not able to try because I have no idea how to operate it is the automatic bed leveling, because I don't see it anywhere in the software where I can initiate that. And the other part is the filament detector, which is just laying down there. I'm not sure how to turn that on or off either. So, and I don't know if you need to somehow activate those options, or, you know, if there's a trick to using them. So it's not obvious to me, so I didn't bother with them. But in any case, I just wanted to put that out there. And overall, if it wasn't for my layering issues, I would say this printer is amazing. It's quiet because it's got those quiet stepper drivers, so you don't get that annoying sound. It's Core XY, which makes it, you know, super cool and amazing for high speed precision. So once I figure out my layering issue, I'll definitely make an update, and maybe we can make some really fast prints to see how that turns out. All right, guys, well, hopefully this video was useful and interesting and you enjoyed it. If you did, then hit that like button. And if you want to check out this printer and maybe get one for yourself, I'm going to have some links in the description, so check those out. And if you enjoy videos like this, I do a lot of 3D printing reviews and other interesting things on this channel, and you're not subscribed, then hit that subscribe button to see more. And if you watch the whole video, then thumbs up to you, and thank you for supporting this channel. It means a lot. And as always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.